Hey guys, it's been a long ass time since I've done one of these videos. I'm sure some of you guys have seen the tournament that I just played in, and it's just the 7 people just playing Zero Abomination. That is, don't worry, that is gonna get hard nerfed. They're gonna be nerfing a lot of this stuff, so I'm not gonna really go into a tier list. I think it's really useless to make a tier list right now, because before everything gets shipped to live, a lot of stuff is going to change. I'm going to be talking about all the champions, specific best in slots, and like what you should be thinking about when like building a carry in your team comp. And then I'll also be pivoting to some shadow items. I'll also talk about some like combinations and stuff. So starting off with the champs, Aatrox is going to be a generic frontline. Aatrox a lot of time is going to be paired with Leona plus a random redeemed unit, and then Callista with Legionnaire with Aatrox. And then the Callista can hold items for either your AP for Shojin, Shojin for Vel'Koz, and then it'll be really easy to pivot your redeemed frontline into a 6 redeemed mid game, and then you pivot out of the 6 redeemed. Aatrox is just a really strong 2-cost unit, a really good frontline unit. Gragas is usually just going to make a pretty strong generic strong board early game. A lot of times Gragas Kha'Zix, it gives Dawnbringer, and in Kha'Zix you can just snipe solo units. And maybe even if you're going to lose the fight, at least Kha'Zix will kill some units, so you take 2 less damage. But usually like Brawler early game isn't that good, just because Set is like, I think the reason Set is so bad is because he's a Draconic, but like Set, this unit sucks. Kled, a lot of times like it is a Cavalier, but rarely ever are you going to be playing like Hecarim or Sejuani, because 2-star 1 costs are more like value than a 1-star 2 cost. So like most of the time you're playing Kled with Hellion, and you most of the time you're going to lose rounds, but you have Ziggs, and Ziggs is really strong. It's going to kill units. Leona is the same thing with Aatrox. It's just a redeemed. It's also a Knight bot, so a lot of times you can just do like a 2 Knight frontline and a random nuke unit in the back. Like sometimes you can pair it with Kha'Zix, sometimes you can pair it with Ziggs. The general like rule of thumb is you just want like frontline plus backline. The 2 generic Knight frontline plus like maybe like Kha'Zix to kill units, Ziggs to kill units. You're probably not going to win unless they're upgraded, but at least you can kill some units, save some HP. I'm not a huge fan of Lissandra. I think Lissandra is actually not bad for holding AP items. But most of the time I value holding like some of the other units, like some of the other combos a lot more. But she is a pretty good AP item holder. Poppy is just generic frontline. It's almost the same as Leona, but it's slightly worse. I rarely ever go Knight with Hellion. It's either just Hellion plus whatever, like maybe Spellweaver or something. Because Hellion is honestly just kind of tanky. Udyr, whatever. He's actually, dude, this unit is really good. It might get nerfed out, but so just be careful about it. But Udyr is actually pretty good. He allows you to play 2 skirmishers, and it allows you to play the 2 extra skirmishers and get you the 3 skirmisher synergy. And like Udyr, a lot of times if you're surrounding him with like other skirmishers, he's actually pretty tanky, and then the skirmishers does ramp up and he can kill some stuff. It's weird that he's a skirmisher and he's gonna hold Jax items, but most of the times if you're playing Udyr early game, this like falls off super hard stage 3, but like your stage 2 is really good. It's not even stage 3. It's like late stage 3, early stage 4. It starts falling off. But if you're playing Jax, you're probably rolling off 4-1 anyway. Vayne actually has her own comp. Her best in slot, it's going to be my Google Doc. I'll talk about it later, but I'll just tell it now real quick. It's going to be Ginsu, Runan's Shadow JG. I'll talk about interactions and stuff later, but a lot of times you can reroll her. Vladimir is almost the same tree as Lissandra. Unless you're playing like maybe like a reroll Coven comp, it's like I value holding some of the other stuff. Warwick is easily paired with maybe another brawler. It's really easy paired with 3 Forgotten. Also, Warwick is just a really good unit. His kit, he executes lowest HP, or doesn't execute, but like targets lowest HP with his ult. Ziggs is probably like one of the best 1 costs. I don't know how much damage it does, but it's like infinite. A lot of times if you're just trying to kill 1 unit, let's say you have Leona 1, Poppy 1, Ziggs 1, this is actually probably going to kill a unit, as long as they're not fighting like have like a Gragas 2 frontline or Aatrox 2 frontline. A lot of times that board can actually kill some units. So those are the 1 costs. The 1 cost is actually pretty like important. It's like kind of weird, but the 1 costs are more important than like anything, because your early game is super important. Trying to shape your early game and transitioning to late game. Brand this unit is really good. Works with Spellweaver. It's also an Abomination. Running 3 Abomination early game is really good. It can hold blue buff really well. It holds AP items really well. It's just, even without AP items, it's just a good unit. It does like infinite DPS as long as you have frontline. Hecarim is pretty good solo frontline. It does an AoE heal. The Cavalier trait is pretty good. I rarely ever am running Forgotten if I'm like finding Hecarim. It's usually always going to be a Cavalier or a Hellion frontline. Kennen is really good. It can hold items for Morg. It can hold Morello really well early game. It can even hold GA. LeBlanc you can actually reroll around. Nautilus is just generic frontline. Sejuani generic frontline. Second hold Locket if you're playing just some Draconic reroll. It might get nerfed soon though. Soraka can actually hold Sin Spec and hold Ice Cream Cone. Syndra can hold AP items. Thresh is usually just generic frontline. Trundle is just generic frontline, can hold Redemption, help your Jax out a little bit. Varus is just redeemed bot, can hold Vel'Koz items, but it's actually probably better with attack speed. Victor is going to hold AP items. Ashe can easily hold AD items, or you just play Ashe. Best in slot, I'll talk about that later. See, like I feel like the one costs are more interesting. So I'll just breeze through this real quick, and then I'll talk about some combos. Or not combos, but like some really strong pairings. They seem pretty obvious. So Katarina is a really good holder for Karma. Probably one of the best. You pair it with 2 Assassin, 3 Forgotten with blue buff, and she nonstop resets with her daggers. Lee Sin is actually probably one of the strongest standalones, even if you don't have Skirmisher. Like 200 AoE early game is not bad with the attack speed slow. Lulu is just usually a Hellion bot. Mystic early game doesn't have much value. Lux is probably the best 3 costs apart from Morgana, obviously. But right now, Lux is really good as redeemed. You actually have her in your end game redeemed Vel'Koz board. Morgana is beyond broken. It's probably the best 3 cost. GA, Morello, Morgana, solo frontline. Nidalee got like nerfed to the ground multiple times. Usually she's just like an early game Dawnbringer skirmisher spat, but low key Nidalee is actually a smurf on stage 2. After stage 2, Nidalee sucks. Nocturne's actually like a pretty good unit, like no cap. Pantheon is a pretty good frontline, helps your Jax. Also has built-in anti-heal. Nunu's Abomination bot. Usually you're not really playing brawlers. Best slot right now is Easy Rob, but it's gonna get nerfed. Riven is just like a early game, like can hold maybe Jax items, can hold AD items, but usually you want to start pivoting into maybe Yasuo, maybe Kalista too. It's usually if you get it dropped from a box and maybe you need Legionnaire, maybe you need Dawnbringer. Riven's actually not bad. Yasuo can hold Aphelios items, probably the best Aphelios item holder because it pairs with Morgana. Aphelios, broken. I'll talk about these best in slots later, but let me just get into some combos. Some combos that are just really obvious is Nautilus Rel. I'd be really surprised if this doesn't get nerfed before live, because it's usually Nautilus Rel with one of the God Kings. So it would be like Darius Garen. So like one of the comps right now is Fortnitebringer. It's Aphelios, Mordekaiser, Diana. Obviously, you're not going to hit Darius every game, and it's okay. You can just get like maybe like a Sejuani 2. You're not going to hit Kindred every game. You just don't run Mystic. But this is like probably like the strongest comp in the game. GA Morello frontline for Morgana. Rel opposite side of Aphelios because Rel's targeting is farthest away ally, so it gives him shield. Mordekaiser's just like a really good off carry. Diana's just really strong. Like this is just like probably the best comp in the game. Given that Zizur Abomination isn't in the game, which it will be removed 100%. Yeah, so like that's one combo. Like Nautilus Rel plus God King and just playing around that. Another one is this comp actually ran it. It's going to be Mordekaiser plus Diana. Even though the only trait that these guys have is Dragon Slayer. If you think about it, Legionnaire is really easy to splash in. Nightbringer is really easy to splash in. But don't get like too baited. Like these units are just infinite value. Like Mordekaiser and Diana are really strong with just leftover items, and if you have Diana with Frozen Heart, she's really good. And let's say you're high rolling early and mid game, and you can actually get the opportunity to like roll infinite gold on 8 or go fast 9. You almost always want to play around Ironheimer Teemo. I'd be surprised if Teemo doesn't actually get a buff before it goes live. I think Teemo's cost is way too expensive. Like paying 6 gold for a unit is a little monka-esque, but it's usually just Ironheimer and where's Volibear? The Revenant frontline, the reason it's so strong is because Ivern is always going to cast Daisy, which is basically like a knock-up for free, not like in addition to the Daisy. But Volibear mid-cast, even if he dies, because of Revenant, he could res with 1% HP. He would still be like good. Just because he can solo frontline and CC their entire team for 2 seconds. Not to mention that he does AP damage, so he's like a beyond broken Morello holder. I think one way to nerf Volibear is just make it so his ult does no damage. That way it can't hold Morello, but I don't know. I'm not a game tester. But then you have the Renewer with the Ivern, and Heimerdinger base damage late game is broken, and it's not even close. So like that's another combo. Those are like the 3 most common ones. Let me go back to talking about the best in slot. So I did talk about some of the one cost like holds AD items, and hopefully that I did a good job about this. Like Vayne reroll is one of these comps that it's Shadow JG, Runan's Ginsu. You need Runan's for sure. You actually don't need Ginsu if you have Zeke's. And then Shadow JG is the interaction is broken because you get 40% crit chance and 40% crit damage. The crit damage is the same, but you get more crit chance. And that's what makes it so broken, because you lose 15% of your max health when you do cast your ult, but Vayne doesn't even have an ult. Her ult is just a passive, so you're just getting infinite DPS, and it is a reroll comp. You just slow roll on 5 for maybe all of the forgotten 3 stars like Warwick, Victor, Hecarim, Thresh. But if you don't, and then you just push 7 as soon as you hit Vayne 3. But if you don't find stuff other than Vayne, then it's fine to just drop the 3 Forgotten and just run like the standard like front line. I think I actually forgot Nocturne. It's just gonna be AS plus AD items, it doesn't really matter. So GA Morella Morgana is actually insane frontline. Also look into Shadow Hodge for Morgana. A lot of times Shadow Hodge Morgana, assuming they're more frontline oriented, which the meta will be after Zerot gets, or Abomination Zerot gets nerfed. This unit's going to be even more value. I wouldn't be surprised if Morgana either gets nerfed, either for Dragon or Nightbringer gets nerfed. But a lot of times Morgana actually ends in your late game comp. Like Pantheon can hold items, help your Jax out a little bit. Yasuo you can actually carry. If you want to go like reroll Yasuo, you can go RSC plus Runans plus AP. The AP doesn't really matter. Shadow Jewel Gauntlet is fine. You can even go like Hodge. You can go Jewel Gauntlet. You can go Rabadons. A lot of times it's going to be Morgana frontline, with your Yasuo being your primary carry with like 4 Nightbringer, probably 2 Legionnaire, and then you just play around that. Morgana Yasuo. But Yasuo is probably the best Aphelios item holder. Nocturne is actually pretty good. If you high roll a lot of Nocturnes on 6 and you have a lot of the AS AD items, you can just play Nocturne that game. Keep in mind that Nocturne is really good if you pair it with Diana, like if they're like next to each other. Like the AS AD, like Shadow Zeeks is actually like Nocturne, like one of Nocturne's like really good items. Shadow Zeeks is really good because you can steal some like shitters AD or AS. Shadow IE is really good. I think I'll talk about that later. He basically has built-in lifesteal, so you can like build some of the shadow items, and he's pretty flexible. I think because of the built-in lifesteal, he's able to hold a lot of the shadow items. Let me get to the forecast because this is where it actually gets interesting. Aphelios. I thought BT was best in slot. Ginsu played ET +1, but just like judging a lot of late game fights, BT is honestly, it's not bad. Like it's good, especially against Zerot on a bomb. But again, that comp is getting nerfed. You don't need VT. Trust me. Like a lot of fights are just fair front to back. And the extra lifesteal is just like really useless on Aphelios because Aphelios is a Nightbringer. Nightbringer is so broken. It's like that. This typing is so broken. Did you know that Nightbringers and Dawnbringers cannot get one shot before their alt procs? So even if Kha'Zix 3 with Rabadons is trying to solo an Aphelios 1, Kha'Zix cast on Aphelios, it literally will not kill it until the shield. So you can't even get bursted from 100 to 0. But the reason it's broken is just it's just like too much survivability, and it also gives damage. Like Nightbringer is so good. It's Ginsu +2, and you just pair it with 2 Ranger. As soon as the Ranger procs the Ginsu, you get so much attack speed. And Aphelios is like low-key a caster, but it's going to be +2 AD items. DB is really good. BT is fine. GS is fine. GS, BT, DB, Runans is fine. Hodge is fine. Aphelios is just really strong. Diana with Frozen Heart can literally solo single-handedly just deny an entire backline. I think Frozen Heart or maybe Diana or maybe both will get nerfed before it goes live. But right now, how it is, Frozen Heart is really good. Draven is not as good as Aphelios because you have to run Forgotten, and Legionnaire on Draven, you don't even feel it that much. I know you heal a little bit with Legionnaire, but it's not nearly as noticeable. Also, Draven isn't as safe because it doesn't have Nightbringer. So you want G or BT for survivability +2 AD items, AD or AS. The more Legionnaires you have, specifically if you have Legionnaire Spat, the best Legionnaire holder is going to be Heimerdinger. The more Legionnaires you have, the less you need attack speed. For example, like a good Aphelios or a good Draven would be like Ginsu, GA, IE. Ginsu, DB, BT. You know what I mean? It's like you want like one survivability item in GA and BT, and then just 2 AS AD items. You don't need the Ginsu if you have like 6 Legionnaire. But you probably don't want to run 6 Legionnaire unless you have Legionnaire Spat, just saying. Jax, you can go regular Runans, you can go Shadow Runans. You do not want regular QSS. That item is garbage. That item is hot trash. But Shadow QSS, Shadow Runans, BT is 100% best in slot. You can go RFC if you don't QSS. So you can do Shadow QSS / RFC. You can do regular Runans. You don't even need Runans, but I wouldn't recommend it. You definitely want BT, maybe Shadow Hodge. But like it just gets more and more budget. Mordekaiser is just leftover items. He scales, his kit scales well with HP, scales well with AP, scales well with armor, MR. It's just leftovers. Rel is leftovers, but I think Mordekaiser has priority on leftovers. I think Mordekaiser is slightly better, but some comps don't really run Mordekaiser, but they do run Rel. So maybe in those comps you want to prioritize Rel a little bit more. Karma, do not get baited into building Shadow JG because Gunblade sucks. Like BT, you're just lacking way too much damage. So it's just blue buff plus AP items. Maybe you can sneak in Shadow GA, but Ice Cream Cones is really good. Like Ice Cream Cone is a little tricky because if you have Karma without blue buff, you're not playing the game. Just know that if you have Aphelios, low key, you don't even need Ginsu. You can just go triple AD items because you have Ranger, but obviously Ginsu is best in slot. Karma, if you don't have blue buff, don't even bother. It's not even worth playing the game. You might as well just have F. Rise is just leftover such utility. You can also do AP / AS. Like blue buff is okay on Rise. Morello is okay on Rise. Better Morello holder is going to be Volibear. It's going to be Morgana. But Rise is like a really budget Morello holder. Taric is just generic frontline items. I think Rel and Taric, depending on what's upgraded. have the same priority, but Mordekaiser usually has the most priority because he's like an off carry if you put items on him. Vel'Koz, if you don't have Shojin, don't even bother playing the game. If you don't have Shojin on Vel'Koz, it's fine, but then like later in stage 5, you better have like multiple carries in like maybe a God King Garen or a Kayle. Like don't get me wrong, don't be like, oh, I have all these AP items and I can't play Vel'Koz because he doesn't have Shojin. Like you can play him, it's just a lot worse. Just know that like later into the game you probably want to go for different carries or it's doomed. Also, I didn't put Ivern here because don't itemize Ivern. That unit's like item scaling is not very good, but he's like really good. Like he's probably one of the best forecasts. I wouldn't be surprised if Darius gets a slight buff. He's HP and generic tank. Darius actually is really good with items. The only thing is I wouldn't be willing to sell a Mordekaiser 2 to transfer the items to Darius. But if you hit them at the same time, like let's say you're rolling on 5-1 and you do hit them at the same time, I probably would prioritize Darius. The same with Garen. Heimer is just late game ASAP, but Heimer early game, even as a standalone, adding the extra turret, like Heimer is just probably like one of the best units in the game. Kayle is just Ginsu +2. RC is really good. A defensive item is good. There's a lot of good stuff. Like even like DB is really good on Kayle with her AD scaling. Kindred can actually use leftover AD AS items, can use Redemption and just have it hug your Aphelios. Or even if you're playing Draven with Kindred Rise with Forgotten. It's more so just like leftover AD AS, but the biggest, most common is just like aura items as well with Zeke's Ice Cream Cone. Teemo is just leftover mana/AP you just carousel items on. Viego is just leftovers. It's usually carousel items, but it can also hold Diana items. GA is good. QS is good. Mana items, blue buff. Volibear is probably the best unit in the set. If it's not Volibear, it's Heimerdinger. But Volibear is just Morello and you just generic frontline. You just get items as you go, but Volibear with Morello with Revenant solo frontline is broken.